I'm Dr. Maisha Handy, pastor of Rise Community Church, and many names, Pastor K, Umi K, you name it. But just glad that you are here worshiping with us and in this space. I'm very excited today. We're doing something a little different here today at Rise, and I am just overjoyed about it. We have been in this season of discipline for 3 months. Ashe. Discipline is our longest focus of the year, as it should be, because it's something we need to do, as we've said, over time, and with a good disposition, whether we prefer it or not. It is the work that we must do. And so we have someone here with us today who is here to help us to do the work. As Dr. Katie Cannon said, to do the work that our souls must have. And that is to engage those who have come before us and who are yet with us. And so I'm very excited to introduce to you Dr. Velma E. Love, or to introduce to some, because I see Dr. Carolyn McCrary is on here, and she knows. Yes, yes, yes. I shared part of her bio last week, but I will be more formal on today. Velma E. Love is a public scholar and ancestral lineage healing practitioner and a narrative change agent. Amen, amen for that. And y'all had this nice picture that I wanted to put up here of her. And so I'm gonna do that so that we're not deprived of it. Amen. Those three bullets. She strongly believes that our lives are shaped by the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. Her work is driven by a profound interest in narrative strategies for personal and social transformation. She is the host and lead moderator for a weekly clubhouse conversation on ancestral medicines for healing cultural trauma. She received a PhD in religious studies from Claremont Graduate University in 2005 and the Master of Divinity degree from Union Religious Practices. She has taught, y'all excuse me, my internet is unstable, so just let me know if you can't hear me. She has taught at Allen University, Howard University, and Florida A&M University. Dr. Love will be teaching 2 experimental courses at the ITC this summer. Woo-hoo! Moral Imagination and Prophetic Problem Solving, and Ancestral Memory, Sacred Texts, and Cultural Healing. A second career academic, she also has extensive background in community development, nonprofit management, and cultural work. She is the creator of Kaleidoscope, a community storytelling project, and ancestral story healing and meditative practice for addressing troubling family patterns transmitted across generations. Love's research has been supported by the Forum for Theological Education, the Wabash Center for Teaching Theology and Religion, Baylor University Oral History Center, and the Dunbarton Oaks Summer Research Program. She was the recipient of ITC's Woman of Scholars Award and Program, which is where I met her at the ITC back in 2010. Dr. Love, Dr. McCrary, and I have all been Women of Scholars through the Office of Black Women in Church and Society at the ITC, headed by Dr. Grant, who was our Women's Her Story Award recipient this year in May. She served as the lead researcher for the Association of Theological Schools Black Student Debt Project. Lord, somebody say student debt. Woo! Thank you for doing that work.
Lord, thank you.
Lord. And she is the co-author of the Black Student Debt Report. Dr. Love is a descendant of the Tenme people of Sierra Leone and the Balanta of Guinea-Bissau and the Mukua of Mozambique via the transatlantic slave trade, which we know as the Ma'afa. She grew up in the southeastern United States, where her formative years were shaped by storytelling, social activism, and a clarion call to the journey of a freedom fighter and justice worker. And Dr. Love currently resides in the Metro Atlanta area. So we're very excited that she has moved back to Atlanta and will be teaching at the ITC.
Thank you. Thanks. Oh, thanks to everybody. Is the sound okay? My sound okay? Okay, yeah. Wow, thank you, Dr. Handy, for this opportunity. This is such a wonderful space. I am thrilled to be here, to be a part of this energy. So I give thanks to everybody who made it possible, the ancestors who ignited this idea and inspired some people to invite me. So I really do appreciate that. I want to begin with just a moment of centering prayer, just so that we are all kind of in the same vibration, although we are, the music has lifted us up. But if you would just breathe with me, just take a deep breath. We know that our ancestors are just a breath away. So ancestors, well and wise ones of everyone present on this call, I invite your energy, I invite your presence. Gather around us as we offer our thanks for who you are, who you have been, and who we are because of you. May these minutes that we share together deepen our understanding and our connection to the soul level calls that are before us. We pour this libation of words to honor your presence. And we ask that this time be filled with light, inspiration, insight, wisdom, and understanding. We lean on you and we embrace your power. Ashe, Ashe, Asheo. So let me just, you've heard the formal introduction. So I want to tell you just a bit about how it is that I happen to be here talking about ancestral guidance. I think this soul level called me when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, growing up in South Carolina, becoming aware of race and the injustices of race. I recall a time of about 5 when I asked for it. Back then we were colored people. I asked for a colored doll for Christmas and I didn't get it. And so when I got up all excited and I ran to the tree and I woke up my brothers and we like, go, let's see what we got, what Santa Claus brought us. And I'm so looking for this little brown doll that I saw it in a catalog, and I had given it to my mother and I said, this is what I want. I don't care if I get anything else, this is what I want. And it wasn't there. And it was a big white doll. And I was so hurt and so broken that I went back to bed. I covered up my head and I cried. And nobody could comfort me. And nobody understood why I was so sad. But for me, that was an identity crisis. And so it started me on a journey to find out more about colored people. My mother tried to explain to me that there weren't any colored dolls where we lived. And I thought, that's ridiculous. They're colored people. So why aren't there colored dolls? And so I began to ask questions, and I asked more questions and more questions. And the civil rights workers and freedom fighters became my heroes. My greatest ambition was to grow up and go to college, be a freedom fighter and get arrested and go to jail. I thought that was the highest calling. And I never went to jail, but I did all those other things that I said that I was going to do. And my quest, my journey was to find out, how can I help Black people's lives be better? So I went to college. I majored in sociology. I got out of college. I worked in the community. I started nonprofit organizations. I worked in youth organizations. And then somehow I got this idea that in spirituality, there was a solution. So I went to seminary. And then I found out seminary wasn't quite what I thought it was. I went, some people laughing. So, but it was in seminary that I met Orisha. And you know, they say the spirits will speak to you in voices that you can hear. And so I didn't know anything about Orisha, but I found Orisha when I was in seminary. And some years, and so I did my dissertation on the Odu, and I was like, oh, this is it. This is it, y'all, this is it. And then some years later, I went to Nigeria and I was initiated, and the diviner said, sister, you were called in Orisha called you in 1996. And I said, well, in 1996, I didn't know Orisha. That's when I went to seminary. And Diviner said, that's when you were called on the path. So that introduced me to the ancestors and their power. So I kept this quest going, and I had an altar and I did my prayers, but I didn't really know how to engage the ancestors. And so I guess I must have had an altar for about 20 years before I knew what the power was. A few years ago, someone told me about a book called Ancestral Medicine. I read the book. I found out that the author lived 2 hours from me. I was living in South Carolina. The author was in Asheville, North Carolina. I tracked him down, made contact, invited myself and some friends to meet with him. And after some pushing and some prodding, he graciously agreed. We went to Asheville, North Carolina, spent 4 hours learning about ancestral medicine. Learned that there was a weekend intensive coming up in Decatur, Georgia. And I was there. I went to Decatur. This is about 3 years ago. So gathered up some friends. I was so excited. Y'all got to come go with me. We got to learn about this ancestral medicine stuff. And I went. And that weekend actually was a beginning of a new chapter in my life. It was a tool that I was being made aware of that I knew that I had to have. So at the end of that weekend, so we did experiential exercises. We actually made contact with the ancestors. We felt the pain. We felt the sorrow. I shed so many tears. I couldn't figure out where is the grief coming from. And I realized it was from generations and generations of assault on the spirit, assault on the Black psyche. And so at the end of that weekend, I felt like I had been in mourning, and I felt like I'd been to a funeral. So when I recovered, I knew that I needed to get this training and to become an ancestral lineage healing practitioner so that I could take this work further. And so I am here today. That's the backstory. And I just felt to give you a little bit of context for that. But what I want to talk about is, what is ancestral lineage healing? Let me go back. Who are the ancestors? Who are the ancestors? If you've ever done any kind of ceremony, any kind of ritual to honor your ancestors, raise your hand, just wave at me. All right, yeah, everybody's here. Okay, so you've done that. And sometimes when we think about ancestors, we think about the remembered dead, the stories that our folks told us about the grandparents that we knew, whatever the stories we heard at the family reunion. So I always like to say, but we have a lot of ancestors. We have a huge cloud of witnesses who are our ancestors. And I don't know if you all have ever seen the ancestral math. It was going around online. Sometimes someone was posting that ancestral math piece. I see somebody nodding their head. So if you go back 10 generations, you have over 4,000 ancestors. That's an army. So what if you could get all those people healed up and well and fighting for you? Woo,
That's good, Dr. Velma.
that's
That's
some power,
good.
right? That's some power. And so that's what we're talking about. So those are the ancestors. What is ancestral lineage healing? If you've heard of that term, like wave at me. Not so many, a couple of people, a few people. Okay, great. So ancestral lineage healing is a ritual. It's a ritual for contacting the spirit world, the people who we call dead, but they're not dead. They are in a different form, right? So they are not incarnate in a physical body, but their energy exists in a different form. So when we talk about ancestral lineage healing, there are 4 basic assumptions. I want to walk through these. Number 1, there's a continuity of consciousness after death. A continuity of consciousness after death. If you're with me, raise your hand. Something continues, like after, so dead is not done. Dead is not done. There's something that continues after death. That's the first assumption. The second assumption is not all dead are equally well. Just like not everybody walking around on earth is of good character, right? There are some troubled spirits, there's some troubled people, some troubled personalities, some hurting people that hurt other people. That's the world we live in.
World we live in. On both preaching. I'm glad I'm right on.
So in the spirit world, there are some troubled spirits. So then you have to be careful. You have to be protected. Just like you, when you walking down the street at night, you're paying attention to where you are. Or whenever you go out of your house, like you say, okay, I'm gonna put on my whole armor. I'm gonna circle myself with light. I want to make sure I've got this, I'm fortified and protected. Well, it's the same thing in the spirit world. So we call those troubled spirits, y'all know, ghosts. That's where they came up with the idea. Let's do Ghostbusters. Troubled spirits, unhealed spirits, spirits that have not transcended. They are trapped. So that's number 2. Not all dead are equally well. Number 3 is that we can communicate. We can communicate. So if there is a continuity of consciousness, if you said, well, yeah, there's something after death, like death is not done. It's just an energy in another form. It's not in a physical body. Then we can communicate. So we can go out. I'm not talking about seance. I'm not talking about spirit possession. I'm talking about a conversation with your ancestors. So we can communicate. And number 4 is the living and the dead affect each other. The living and the dead affect each other. So these invisible forces, and if you, this is an Afrocentric cosmology here that among this group, and so you know that there is an invisible, unseen world that is just as active, populated as a physical world. We're just not taught about it in a sort of to make it a normal way of thinking, right? So then ancestral lineage healing is about getting to know. It's a ritual. And I like to think about Malidoma Somate's work on ritual, power, healing, and community. He says ritual then is something that you do. It's a technology. It's a spiritual technology. It's something that you do to go there where the power is, be empowered, infused, grab it up, soak it up, get it, and bring it back here to affect change. So we want to affect personal change, cultural change, social change, collective change. How many people want to affect some kind of change? Some kind of change, yeah. Maybe your personal life, maybe your family. Maybe there's some stuff in your family that needs to be changed, right? How many people have heard of post-traumatic slave syndrome? Post-traumatic slave syndrome. So that's the idea that pain and trauma can be transmitted across generations. So a lot of what we experience that we want to change, it didn't start with us. It didn't start with us. So I talked about those 10 generations, those 4,000 people. Then some of what we experienced came from that generation, that generation, that generation. That's a lot. Not to think about where we are in this sort of racial caste system that we live in, this white supremacist world that we live in. And so we hold this pain in our bodies. And ancestral lineage healing is really about healing us, because the ancestors are in us, right? We're them and they're us. So we heal them so we can heal ourselves. And not only that, we can heal the unborn children, the future generations. So we are like saying, okay, this is a ritual technology where we contact a wise and well ancestor from each of our 4 primary lineages, and we ask questions. What are the blessings on this line? You make contact with a well and wise ancestor. What can you tell me about my people, my mother's mother's people? What were their gifts? What were their blessings? What were their challenges? What were their curses? What do we need to heal? And we ask the spirits to tell us this, to give us some insight and some wisdom. And we listen with our hearts, our intuitive wisdoms, to deepen that understanding. So once we know what those gifts are, we want to make sure that we are embracing, living out those gifts, because y'all Afrocentric minded, that we came into the world to do something, right? Right? Yeah, we came to do something. We didn't just come to play, Well, yeah, we came to play too, but we came with a mission, and hopefully we can have fun on that mission. It can be a good experience, but you want to be able to do that to your highest and best. So when Dr. Handy started this community, and then all these other people joined in and joined her team, and because you knew that she had a calling, she had some power with it, right? And so we come to fulfill that calling, and we have in Egg Bay a group of people, well, a team of people, our SWAT team, our what do you call it in the acting world, our supporting cast, to help us tell that story, the story of what we came to do, right? What contribution we came to the world to make. Like one of my mentors said, you came with a shopping list. So before you left the spirit world, you knelt down at Ajala's house and you said, okay, I want the right head. I want the consciousness that will fit this mission. And I want my shopping list. So you came with something, and you came to receive something to help you fulfill that mission. So through ancestral lineage healing work, we try to uncover that. We want to uncover that soul level story. So I talked about one line, then you go into your father's people, your father's mother's people, right? Your mother's people, your mother's father's people. And from all of these lines, you're going to say, okay, what are your gifts? Let me see that I have that one. Maybe it's dormant. And you ask them, what do I need to nurture? What do I need to do? Is there a ritual I need to do? Is there an offering that I need to make? And so everything then, every decision is informed by what your mission is. But if you don't know your mission, if you don't know why you came, and we forget, we're born into the world, we forget, unless we grow up in an indigenous culture that's like, is divine, and then figuring out why the child came into the world, and we don't know. So we kind of stumbling along, and some of us get it. Some of us are fortunate, like things happen to me, as a preschool, I was like, oh no, I can't. I gotta make a contribution to change in this kind of world. So I knew that. I just didn't know how. And so then your destiny path is open. There are many different ways that you can approach it, and at different times in your life. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes people just like, "Oh, I don't know. I just want to make some money. I just want to make some money. I just want to be a good athlete. I just want to be a good musician. Yeah, fine, right? But just make sure you check in with the ancestors and see what they have to say. See what your ancestral gifts are. See what the challenges in your family line have been. We struggle with stuff. And then as Black people, we're proud. We don't want to talk about the pain. We don't want to talk about the sorrow. We don't want to talk about the mental illness. We don't want to talk about the alcoholism. We don't want to talk about sexual abuse. We don't want to talk about neglect. It's all there. And so we don't talk about it. And so what happens? Psychologists say that trauma that is not transformed is trauma that is transmitted. So then it is transmitted from one generation to the next generation, to the next generation. And gene expression is different. It doesn't always show up the same way. But that experience that I had where I felt like I had been to some 3-day funeral and all of this grief, and I didn't know where the grief was coming from, it was in my body. I was carrying it. And so when we are holding the pain, and when we are holding the grief, and when we are holding the shame, it obscures the power. It traps some power that you could be releasing to manifest your genius in the world. And the manifesting of your genius can help somebody. So in the Dagara system, Maladona say, you came to bring a gift to the village. They say we have water people, we have fire people, we have earth people, we have mineral people. All of these energetic clans have a contribution to make to the village, to the global community. So here we are now. Some psychologists say we are in a collective rites of passage, a kind of global rites of passage, a global rites of passage. Separation, that's the archetype. Did we have separation in the last year? Quarantine, shut down, shut in. That's the first stage of change, they tell us. And what did that separation do? While we, couldn't do our regular things, couldn't see our people, couldn't interact, couldn't socialize, we got to learn about Zoom. That's now everybody knows how to do Zoom now, right? Yeah. Learn about these electronic gadgets, Clubhouse came into existence, and I started a room on Clubhouse, and people started finding ways, creative ways to connect, because the human spirit needs connection. We need each other. But in our isolation, in our being disconnected and shut down, there's a descent. And where did we descend to? The inside. A descent into the soul. Stage 2 of change. Descent into the soul. And so when we do ancestral lineage healing, it's that ritual is for a descent. It's like, hey, go in, make connection, cultivate relationship, and then come out. And come out with something. You're going to talk to your ancestors about what you need, about what you cried about, what you prayed about. you know, what you struggle with. And we say the antidote, the healing is in the pain. The antidote, that thing that's going to make it okay. That medicine we carry. So we carry the wounds, we carry the historical wounds in our bodies.
Yeah.
Also carry the medicine. We carry the personal medicine. So ancestral lineage healing then is about the personal medicine.
Well, Ashe.
The personal medicine.
Ashe.
I want it. How can I get it? How can I stand on my own platform of power to activate the personal medicine for my own healing, my family's healing, and the healing of the beautiful ones not yet born?
Ashe.
So when we embrace the ancestral lineage healing, we are saying, oh, I'm going to intervene. I'm the one that's called in this family to step up and say, oh, it stops here. It's going to stop right here. Whatever it is, it's going to stop, because I know that somewhere in those 4,000 something ancestors, there are some well and wise ones, and I'm going to contact them, connect with them, ask them to nurture my spirit, ask them to bring healing, to release the prayer energy in the line, to release the positive power in the line so that I can absorb it.
Ashe.
And then I can give it.
Ashe.
I can give it to the people in my family. I can give it to people in RISE community. I can give it to people at the ITC. I can give it to people in the world.
Ashe.
That's why I do ancestral lineage healing. I don't know how we're doing on time, but I want to lead you just in a little practice and then open up for some questions. So I know you have some questions, and I know I didn't say anything on my script. I guess the spirit like to say, oh yeah, I mean,
Amen. Ashe.
if y'all responsible because you set the atmosphere and the spirit came in and just took over. And
Amen.
oh, wow, I was supposed to say
Amen. Ashe.
right.
Ashe, that's how we move.
Ashe,
That's how we move.
Ashe,
Ashe.
Thank you for your love and your support and your wisdom and your interest and your connection with the ancestors. So we're going to do, so I said this ancestral work is a ritual. So when I guide people in the process in a formal way, I'm guiding them through a meditation process. Now, if you're doing it on your own, you can do a similar kind of meditation process. But now, for the interest of just to give you a little bit of an experience, and then we can have a Q&A for a few minutes. I want you to just take a few deep breaths and just settle in your body. Just make sure you're comfortable in your body. Stretch if you need to. You've been sitting for a while. Shoot, I think I need to stretch myself. So I'm stand up and just stretch for a minute. And now, we carry a lot of our energy in our head, especially those academics, I'm one, so I know. And sometimes we just all up in here, we're doing analysis and all kinds of stuff. So I want you to just let that go. So bring that energy from your head, let it come down to your throat chakra. And let that energy move down to your heart chakra and your solar plexus. Let it move on down to your sacral chakra, your root chakra. Through your legs and feet into the ground. And just feel your energy fully in your body, in the lower part of your body. You want to feel grounded. Just grounded, just settled in your body. When you feel settled in your body, I want you to, now if you're driving, just listen, don't try to do this, right? But if you're in a space where you're safe and it's okay, you can do this with your eyes open or eyes closed. I think it's less distracting if your eyes are closed, but you can just, again, if you're not driving, cast your eyes downward or close your eyes. Now I want you to invite a trusted spirit guide. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, invite your idea of divinity, divine power, whether that's an angel, a Christ consciousness, an Orisha, a wise ancestor, or a spirit animal. Whatever your idea of support from the spirit world, I want you to invite a spirit helper to be in your midst. You might have a visual, you might see something, you may not. You may sense a presence, but just invite that energy to connect with you. And when you feel that connection, you want that helper, that spirit guide helper or energy presence to cleanse and clear your aura. Just imagine this smoke or incense or feather or whatever, water, whatever, light, whatever. Something is cleansing and clearing your energy field, cleansing and clearing your energy field. And then you want that guide, that helper, that energy presence to establish an extra layer of protection around you. So that protection could look like a shield. It could look like a circle of light. It could look like a bubble. It could be just a warm blanket. You just want to make sure that you have this sense of protection. Now, from that space of being fully centered, grounded, cleared, protected, I invite you to ask your spirit guide to accompany you into this land of ancestral realm, to the ancestral spirit realm. You're fully protected, you're safe. You're going to enter, imagine that you're entering a sacred forest and there's a pathway before you. You're going to walk that path with your guide by your side. Up ahead, you see some dancers, some drummers, some people gathered. It looks very festive, and you're not quite there yet, but it's like you can feel the vibrations already. It feels like a welcoming space. And so you're going to enter closer. And as you get closer, someone notices you. There's a fire there in the clearing, and there are people gathered around the fire. And somebody looks up and they notice you. And they come out to greet you. They greet you with a warm welcome. And they invite you into the gathering. And you're happy now because you weren't so sure where this was all going. But now you feel safe and you feel encircled by love. And so you're in this gathering where your ancestors are there. Your well and wise ancestors are there, and they are happy. They are drumming and clapping and dancing, singing. And you were like, wow. And you just sort of stand there and you absorb this energy. And now you're remembering what Malidoma said about ritual. He said, you go there to absorb, to get, to gather the energetic power so you can bring it back and infuse it in your life. So just stand there, listen, see if there are any messages coming just for you. There might be somebody who wants to whisper a message just for you. Your ears are open. It may be a word. It may be a song. It may be a chant. It may be a knowing, an awareness. Be open with your mind, body, and spirit to receive it. Remember, Malidoma says you go there to get that power. And so you want to offer your gratitude and your thanks for all these people who are gathered, for those who have elevated the vibrational field and, through their drumming, their dancing, and singing, you want to thank them. For the elders, you can see the older people, you want to thank them. For all the spirits there, you want to thank them. You want to thank them. And before you leave, you might ask, how can you honor this relationship? You want to honor this relationship. They may say, oh, you're already doing it, just keep doing what you're doing. They may say, you need to put some fresh water on your altar. I don't know what they might say to you, but it's a message for you. So take your time. And when you're ready, you've expressed your gratitude, you've received some energy, you've listened, then you want to slowly connect with that guide who escorted you into the space, and you want to return your awareness back to the room. Slowly. Now, sometimes this part gets so good that people go to sleep. They get all wrapped up in that energy and they're like, so come on back, all right? So I want you to, maybe let's see if I can do the chat. I want to entertain some questions. So if you, raise your hand, use the hand function, or either you can just raise your hand, or unmute your mic and just ask a question, or you could type in the chat box. Okay. So how was that? Let me ask you a question. How was it? How was that experience?
Awesome.
Somebody say awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Healing. Healing.
Didn't want to leave.
Didn't want to leave. Yeah. You get in there like, oh, this is good. Can I stay a little bit longer? Love this fire. I see 2 hands raised here. So 2 or 3 hands. So I don't know who was first, but just unmute your mic. Marcella Davis.
Yes, Dr. Love, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
I thought that was absolutely beautiful, and I've never experienced anything like that. But what I want to know is this: when I first went into this, I felt fear. So how do I let go of fear? And that is something that I have been trying to do for a long time. I grew up in a religion that was very fearful. And so how do I connect with my ancestors but not be fearful?
That's an excellent question. And it's a common question for, especially for people who experience fear around spirituality. And you know, we were taught that to fear all things African because it was all, quote, you know, demonized. And so part of the liberation of the mind and the decolonizing of the mind and the spirit then is to be able to reclaim that. And so the more we are able to reclaim the ancestral stories and the ancestral practices, the more fear subsides. So my general answer to that is, you know, do the small step that you're comfortable with. And the more you do the small step, the more confident you are. And the more those old blocks, what's the word I'm thinking? Like
Tapes, narratives.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. McCrary. The tape, those old tapes in your mind. Yeah, that's what we're working against, you know, and that is your default position. So you can know something intellectually, you can know it in your head, and like, yeah, and of course, I don't know my ancestors. Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't do that, right? But then when we get to this work, like, okay, you honor them, well then talk to them. Then those old tapes come in, like, what you doing? What you say? You know? Yeah. And so yeah, it's just, you know, you take a small step and you do that consistently. Y'all talked about discipline. Yeah, you just kind of do that. And be kind. I would always say this: be kind to yourself.
Ashe.
Be kind to yourself. Because remember, we're talking about, we're trying to undo generations of mindset
Ashe.
traps.
Ashe.
And you know, what I've been talking, what, 40 minutes or something? Like they didn't get there in 40 minutes, right?
Mm.
Those mindset things, traps that we are dealing with, that colonized mind. I mean, you know, it's like I said, the generations. So we just, you know, we just keep doing a small step and being kind, acknowledging your ancestors, finding out the stories, sharing the stories, you know, if you do that family reunion, well, all these things, these sort of cultural things that we know, just doing more of that, then that helps that fear subside. Hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure, you're welcome. Okay.
Amen.
How do you say your name? Is it
Efunbolade?
Efunbolade? That's beautiful. I wanted to say it right. Okay.
And you did the first time. That's rare.
Okay.
So I have like 3 parts. I have one question, but first, thank you so much. This has been so transformative. First, because I have like many gifts, but I feel oftentimes lost. Like I feel like there's work that I'm supposed to be doing right now that's changing the world, which I am, but like very intentional, bigger work, like building institutions and stuff like that. And I never know like necessarily how to start it or where to go. And I think that's the part that I've been missing, is like going directly to the ancestors and asking, what exactly am I supposed to do with this gift? Or what exactly were your gifts, and how could that, change my life? So thank you for that. I think that's going to really transform my walk in this season. And when we started the meditation, you said find something that makes you feel safe, that's protecting you. I feel like I saw myself for the first time, like in a spiritual sense. And it was just very, very interesting, because it was like this really huge, like, warrior. And I never really saw like a kind of tangible image of that self. So thank you for that. But my question is, when healing generational trauma and hurt and ancestral things, do the participants, like family members and ancestors and stuff, do they have to be willing participants for it to necessarily work?
No, that's
Mhm.
an interesting, good question. Excellent question. I worked with a client who had been estranged from his brother for about 3 years. They had not spoken because of some dispute around an inheritance. And he had a difficult time. He's like, I can't do this. I can't, whatever. And, I can't be forgiven, and my ancestors did, oh my God, there was just so much stuff he had to work through. But, he persevered and he did it. And then one day on his birthday, his brother, whom he had not spoken to in 3 years, called him.
Mm.
And he called me, this client called me and said, Dr. Love, you won't believe what happened. I think it was the result of the ancestors working.
Mhm.
Because the other family members, you have the same ancestors. And so the work is happening on the spiritual plane,
Right.
and the effect is seen on the physical plane. Like you don't, and you and the client, or you, or if you're doing it personally, part of the work that you do is you're pulling that positive energy, you're pulling that power forward, and you're fanning it out. You're fanning it out to your siblings and to your family and to, everybody, descendants. And so, yeah, so it's not just, personal, it becomes family. And then so you say you have a lot of gifts, and for people who have a lot of gifts, sometimes it's hard for us to focus. Like, oh, I'm interested in so many things.
Like every week I'm doing something different.
But focus. If you could add, part of what you do is you want the wise ancestor to help you focus that energy, because you probably can do all those things, but there may be a particular focus at a particular time that's called for. And and just be grateful that you have all of those options and gifts. Thank them, thank your ancestors for that. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Okay, I see some other hands here. I don't know who was next. Whoever, just unmute your mic. Justin, Marilyn. Go ahead, Justin.
Hey, how we doing? So much. I hope you can hear me. I'm over the radio. The question is this. When I was a child, between high school and college, I maybe had like 6 to 10 family members die unexpectedly. And I think more so for learning how to fully grieve, how to compartmentalize well. So when I like the concept of veneration, and I hear you saying it, I believe in it. But I find more so grieving and unpacking those boxes to the point where it's not necessarily going journey with the ancestors. It's like, oh, you're here. Like, this is. So I guess I'm looking for assistance in doing that work and grieving fully so that I can go on the journey, or then and take the wisdom and collect it, bring that back to community. I guess I feel stuck amidst.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. The body work is a important part of releasing that pain that's trapped. So the book that I like to refer people to is My Grandmother's Hands, Resma Menachem, My Grandmother's Hands. And he has, actually you can go to his website. He has some free material there on his website and some free little courses that you can do, or you can work with a therapist, a counselor. But he emphasizes the importance of realizing that trauma settles in the body. And so part of why we are so, Black people are so sick, you hear about the social impact of the illness that comes from social history and behavior. I mean, what all the illness do we have? Hypertension, asthma, diabetes, it just goes on and on. And you got relatives, I'm sure you have older relatives, if they have not been practicing a healthy lifestyle, they on 10 or 12. I know somebody in my family say, oh, I'm on 13 medications. And then people, they get together and they talk about, well, and this is like, can you believe this? Comparing medications. I take this and this and this and this and that and that. And what do you take? Yeah. And so so it's important, young people, like, get rid of that trauma in your body, because it is slowly destroying. And, we can't be our best selves if our bodies are not functioning at the best. We can't do the work we are called to do at the highest level if we are not healthy and well, mind, body, and spirit. So in our heritage, we know something about spirituality, because that's just part of who we are. But how does all of that connect? Somehow the connective pieces, like, we missed some of the connective tissues there. So I know that's a long answer, Justin, to your question. But yeah, and the more once you make that commitment, then the ancestors began to open up. People began to come into your path that help you on the journey. Like, I didn't know, I didn't even know Dr. Handy had founded a church. We were talking about something else and she asked me what I was doing. I just kind of brushed over, I do ancestral work. And then she came back to it and she said, well, what's that? I don't know about. And then she just kept, she kind of like, oh, okay, maybe she, I'm so accustomed to people like, what? That don't sound weird. Because when somebody came before me who like knew something and wanted to connect with me, I almost like didn't even know what to say, right? So being aware, and just paying attention to things, to the things that come into your path. Yeah, that will help you on the journey.
Thank you.
Open. I see Marilyn and Omi. Yeah.
Hi, this is Marilyn. Thank you very much. During the exercise, I was crying, tears were just flowing. I'm not sure why. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, it was a release. It was a release that your body needed. Your body was saying, thank you. Thank you. You gave me a release.
Thank you.
That happens with my clients sometime, and I say, no, don't apologize. Your body is saying, thank you. I needed to, these are cleansing tears. I needed these tears to come to cleanse. Have you ever known what it's like to have frozen tears? That is the worst feeling. I lost my son to suicide and I couldn't cry. That is, and people thought, oh, she's so brave and she's so courageous. No, I had frozen tears. That is horrible. So be thankful for the tears, because the tears release and cleanse. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Love, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing with us and being here to walk us through this. The thing that resonated with me was the level of protection that you called forth very early as you walked us through ritual. And to me, that was a direct connection to helping us to feel less fear when it comes to walking on our spiritual journey. So thank you for just the very intentional calling forth of our guardian spirit. And I quickly, I quickly saw my grandmother, who was a very spiritual woman, and just prayed over us. And I think that her prayers still cover us to this day. The question I want to ask you is in regard to the passing of so many people in this past year. I've had dreams where we've had mass wailing for the loss and the grief that we have yet to really unpack as communities across this country and the world. And so my question for you is, how do we begin to do some of the work of grieving those who we've lost? And then on the other side, what can we understand about those folks who lost their lives in a matter of days?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Such important questions. You know, there's some individual personal things we can do, like just, you know, light a candle and say a prayer, you know, sit with that and just, you know, ask for the healing of those families who are experiencing loss, who have not had an opportunity to properly grieve, have not been connected with family. We can do prayers, and you know, we can do prayers with our wise ancestors and ask them for guidance for our own families. You know, all of us know people who have lost people, maybe in our own families. You know, I had an aunt who died of COVID, and when she was admitted to the hospital, I did a ritual with my ancestors, and before I could even get in, like the woman's mother showed up. Like she was my grandmother. I never knew of this grandmother. I'd only seen a picture, but she showed up in this meditation, and she said, "I'm preparing for my daughter to come home, and what I want you to do is prayers for her readiness." Her readiness in her transition, and for the family's readiness to release her. And that was it. Like, okay, the ritual was over. You know, she disappeared, and then I'm sitting there like, I wasn't thinking about, I wasn't, what? Okay, you know, all right. Yeah, so asking, you know, making that connection and asking what individually can be done. And then I think collectively, and I think as the world opens up, we will begin to see the ritualists organizing more collective grief work. And you know, Maladoma says that part of the Western reason that we have so many problems in the Western culture is because we don't grieve. We don't know how to grieve. You know, so I expect to see more collective grief work going on. But yeah, there are things that we can do individually. Yeah. Okay, I know we must be getting close to time to end. So thanks everybody. I appreciate you. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. I just wanted to close with a few words from Amanda Gorman, because I just love her work so much. The Hill We Climb. She says, and I think this is so appropriate, we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. So if we don't do the healing work, that next generation suffers.
Sure.
Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain, if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. That's why we need to do the ancestral healing work, so that change can become our children's birthright. Thank you so much.
Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe, thank you, Ashe.
Ashe.
Beautiful.
Ashe,
Ashe.
Dr. Love.
Awesome
This was
love.
Ashe.
so
Oh.
needed.
Ashe. Oh.
Wonderful, wonderful,
This
wonderful.
was so
Thank
needed.
Ashe,
Thank you.
Ashe, Ashe.
Thank you so much.
Aseo, Ashe,
Mm.
Thank
Ashe,
you. Thank
Aseo.
you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Dr.
Mm.
Love. Thank you, Dr. Andy.
Yes,
Mm.
thank you. Thank you. Ooh,
Ashe.
I,
Ashe. Oh.
I'm just full isn't even the word
Mm.
it doesn't even encapsulate what I feel right now. I
Mm.
just don't have the language for it. What I want to do right now is transition over to our deacons to offer prayers for the people and our idea. So I'd just like to ask one of our deacons to come forward to transition over to our next space, please.
God, thank you for such a mighty time, a mighty feeding, God, a mighty growing and a mighty stretching. We
Mm.
ask and pray that the work happens, God, that we commit to doing the work. We're disciplined around transgenerational healing for our bloodlines and
Mm.
for our fictitious bloodlines, God. Thank you for the people that we come in contact with that let us know we're on the right path, that remind us that we're doing the right work, reminds us that we are healing our families. God, give us courage to do this in the times to come. Give us courage to do this, God, in the times to come. Thank you for Dr. Love and all that she's pouring out. We ask and pray that you pour it back into her, God. Replenish her. For the work of a healer is mighty.
Mm.
So continue to heal her, God. Thank you for the love and the people that are going to give. We ask and pray that you touch their hearts on the front side. And thank you for their gifts in advance. All these things in your name we pray. Amen and Ashe.
Ashe.